Imagine a village where everyone loved a man's turkey meat. They praised him, bought his meat every week, and trusted him with their families. But what if I told you the meat was not what it seemed? One curious boy followed the man into the forest, and what he saw will shock you. Stay with me to hear the full story. In a small village called Amurri, there was a man named Peter. Everyone knew Peter. He sold turkey meat, and people loved his meat. The smell was sweet, the meat was soft, and children danced when they saw him coming to the market. Women praised him for being kind, and men said he was honest. Every market day, villagers lined up in front of his stall. Peter always smiled, waved, and said, "Good morning, my friends. Today, the meat is fresh." People trusted him. They believed he had a special farm where turkeys were raised with care. Nobody doubted him. Peter was always polite and helpful. If someone didn't have money, he would say, "It is okay, you can pay me later." If someone praised him, he would bow and say, "It is nothing, my friends. It is God's blessing." Children loved to play around his stall. Women would sometimes watch him carefully, wondering how he always had so much meat. Even the chief of the village said Peter was a good man. The village thought he was honest, and everyone smiled when Peter was near. But one boy named Emeka noticed something strange. Emeka was curious and brave. He liked to explore and see things others didn't see. One morning, before the sun came up, Emeka saw Peter leaving the village carrying a big, heavy sack. But instead of going to a turkey farm, Peter walked toward the thick forest at the edge of the village. The forest was dark, quiet, and full of strange noises. Emeka wondered what Peter was hiding. He decided to follow Peter quietly, hiding behind trees and bushes. Emeka followed Peter deeper into the forest. The birds were quiet, and the wind whispered between the tall trees. Peter stopped near a fallen tree and looked around carefully. Then he opened the sack and pulled out something shocking. It was not a turkey. It was a large dead vulture, black and ugly. Emeka froze. He knew vultures were dangerous and dirty. What was Peter doing with it? Slowly, Peter took a knife and began cutting the vulture into pieces. He rubbed it with red palm oil to make it look fresh. Emeka's heart beat fast. He realized the truth: Peter had been selling vultures to the village instead of turkey meat. Emeka's heart was pounding like a drum as he hid behind the thick trees. He could see Peter carefully cutting the vulture meat, but Peter did not notice him. The forest was very quiet, almost like it was holding its breath. Emeka had never seen anything like this before. The bright morning sunlight barely reached the ground through the tall trees, and shadows moved with every step Peter took. Emeka's hand shook, but he stayed hidden. He knew he had to see what Peter was doing next because the whole village could be in danger if nobody knew the truth. Peter carried the pieces of the vulture in a clean basket he had brought with him. He looked around again, making sure no one could see him. Then he started walking back slowly toward the village, humming a small tune. Emeka followed, keeping far enough behind so Peter would not notice him. As they walked, Emeka thought about all the people in the village who had eaten Peter's meat. Mothers had fed it to their children. Families had used it in festival meals. Emeka felt a mix of fear and anger. He wanted to stop Peter, but he knew he had to find a safe way to tell the village without being caught. Suddenly, Peter stopped near the river that ran beside the village. He looked around nervously and dipped a piece of meat into the water to wash it. Emeka could see how carefully Peter made the meat look clean and fresh. "This will fool them again," Peter whispered to himself, smiling. Emeka's stomach turned. He felt scared, but he also felt brave. He had to tell someone. He needed help. If he went alone to the village, Peter might notice him. If he waited too long, the meat could already be sold. Emeka made a quick plan in his head. He would follow Peter all the way, watch carefully, and then find someone to tell the truth. Peter finally walked back into the village carrying the basket as if nothing had happened. People started coming out of their homes to buy meat. Peter greeted everyone with a wide smile, saying, "Fresh turkey for everyone. Come quickly, the best meat in the village." Villagers smiled and lined up to buy. Emeka watched from behind a corner. He knew he had to act soon. He could not let Peter trick the village again. Emeka's mind was racing. He had never felt this much fear and responsibility before. He knew the village depended on him, and he would not let them down. Emeka knew he could not wait any longer. He ran as fast as he could toward the village square, his feet kicking up dust and his chest heaving. People stopped what they were doing and stared at him. Mothers held their children tight, and men paused mid-conversation. "Peter is lying," Emeka shouted. "He is not selling turkey. He is selling vulture meat." His voice was loud and scared, but full of courage. At first, people could not believe him. How could the man they trusted for so many years be lying? Some villagers shook their heads, thinking Emeka was imagining things. But the fear in the boy's eyes made them listen. Peter, who had just started setting up his stall, turned around. His smile vanished. "What are you saying, boy?" he asked, trying to sound calm. "You are lying. Everyone knows my turkeys." But Emeka shook his head and held out his hands. "I followed you into the forest. I saw what you did. You cut a vulture, and you rub it with palm oil to make it look like turkey." His words shocked everyone. Gasps filled the air. Women dropped their pots. Children stopped playing. Even the chief, who was sitting under the big tree in the square, looked up with wide eyes. The villagers quickly gathered around Peter and Emeka. "Take us to your turkey farm now," one man shouted. Peter hesitated, his hands shaking. The crowd stared at him. He knew if he led them to the truth, his secret would be exposed. He tried to lie. My farm is far away, you cannot see it today," he stammered. But the villagers were no longer willing to believe him. They wanted proof. Peter's hesitation was enough. The people began whispering to each other, and the whispers quickly grew louder. They had trusted him for too long. Something was very wrong. The chief stood up and raised his hand. "Bring everyone to the farm. Now," he commanded. Peter's face went pale, and he nodded silently. Emeka felt a mix of fear and relief. He had done his part. The villagers followed Peter out of the village, walking carefully through the dusty paths. Mothers held their children close. Men held sticks, ready to protect the village if needed. Emeka walked with his friends, his heart still beating fast. He knew the truth was about to be revealed. And the truth, when it came out, would shock everyone in the village. If you've watched to this stage, please subscribe, like and share as we continue. The villagers followed Peter through the narrow path that led to his so-called turkey farm. He walked slowly, trying to act calm, but his hands trembled. Emeka stayed close to the crowd, his eyes wide and alert. The farm was quiet, surrounded by tall trees and old wooden fences. When Peter unlocked the gate, everyone looked inside, and their mouths dropped. The farm was empty of turkeys. Not one single bird could be seen. Instead, there were rusty cages and piles of feathers. Some feathers were black, some brown, none looked like turkey feathers. The smell was strong and unpleasant, and the villagers stepped back in shock. An elder bent down and picked up some bones from the ground. He held them carefully, and his eyes widened in disbelief. "These are not turkey bones," he whispered. Mothers gasped and clutched their children. Men shook their heads, some mumbling curses. Peter's face went pale. He tried to explain. I only wanted to survive. My turkeys died. I had no choice. I only wanted to sell something, he cried. But no one wanted to hear excuses. The people realized they had been eating vultures all this time. The taste, the smell, the softness of the meat, it had all fooled them. The villagers were angry, scared, and disappointed. They had trusted Peter for many years, and he had betrayed them. The chief raised his hand and said, "Peter, you must face judgment. You cannot deceive this village again." The elders nodded, and a council was called immediately. Peter fell to his knees, begging for forgiveness, but the villagers shook their heads. They had learned an important lesson: trust must be earned, and lies always come out in the end. Emeka stood quietly, watching the scene unfold. His heart felt heavy, but he was proud too. He had followed his courage and discovered the truth. The villagers would no longer be fooled. Peter was taken away to face punishment. The village felt a mix of sadness and relief. They knew life would go on, but this story would stay in their hearts for years. After Peter was banished from Amurri, the villagers cleaned his farm and inspected the bones and cages. They found not only vultures, but also hawks, owls, and other wild birds that Peter had used to trick them. Mothers and fathers were upset, but they were thankful that the truth had been discovered before anyone got very sick. They realized how easy it is to be fooled by someone who pretends to be good. That evening, the villagers gathered in the square. The chief spoke to everyone. "Let this be a lesson for all of us," he said. "Not everyone who smiles at you is honest. Not everything that looks good is good. Always ask questions. Trust carefully, and teach your children to be brave like Emeka, who spoke the truth even when he was scared." Everyone nodded, understanding the wisdom in the chief's words. Emeka became a hero in the village. His friends lifted him up, and mothers hugged him with tears in their eyes. Even the elders praised him for his courage. "You saved the village," they said. From that day, children in Amurri learned to pay attention, to speak up, and to be brave. The story of Peter and the fake turkey meat became a tale told in every home, warning everyone to be careful and honest. Whenever villagers remembered Peter's deception, they would shake their heads and say, "If only we knew what he sold to us as turkey meat." And the story lived on for generations, teaching that courage, honesty, and careful trust are more valuable than anything else. Never trust blindly. Even a friendly smile can hide a lie. Bravery and honesty, even from a small child, can save a whole community. Always be careful, and speak up when you see something wrong. If you enjoyed this story and want more African folktales like this, make sure you like, subscribe, and share with family and friends.